I never imagined my life would be marked by such a cruel betrayal, but then again, I suppose I was naive. I've always been the steady one in the family, practical, dependable, the sensible sister, as everyone liked to call me. I'd often joke that I was a walking lesson in responsibility, not because I enjoyed it, but because someone had to be. My name is Anna, and I'm 28 years old. I've always lived on my own, carved out a life for myself after finishing college and landing a decent job in marketing. I wasn't a big spender, and I didn't mind not having the latest trendy clothes or the fanciest phone. I was content with my cozy apartment, a steady income, and the occasional weekend getaway to recharge. In the years since I moved out, I'd built up a good nest egg. Not just for emergencies, but for my future. I dreamt of buying a house one day, or maybe starting my own small business. Something to call my own. Then there was Jessica, my younger sister by 2 years. The contrast between us was glaring, though I never let it bother me. Where I was careful, Jessica was reckless. She thrived on the idea of being the center of attention, always pulling the strings to make sure she was the most talked about person in the room. Jessica was the type of girl who would buy a designer dress and go to a lavish party just to post pictures on social media. She had a way of making everything seem like a fairy tale, especially when it came to relationships. She always seemed to have a boyfriend, and if she didn't, she was immediately on the hunt for someone else to fill the void. I loved her, but sometimes I found her exhausting, especially when she would belittle me for not being social enough or fun enough. Her fiancé, Adam, was an easy match for her, charming, rich, and always at her beck and call. His parents were well off, and from the moment they met, it was clear that Jessica saw their relationship as more than just love. It was a gateway to the life she'd always dreamed of. And while Adam didn't come from a family that openly spoiled her, he did everything to make her feel special. Everything she wanted, he would get. It was almost as if his entire existence revolved around making her dreams come true. But as the wedding plans grew, I could sense a shift in the family dynamic. Jessica's wedding had become her obsession. It was all about the perfect day, the perfect venue, the perfect dress, the perfect everything. The way she talked about it, you'd think she was planning an event for royalty. And in her mind, maybe she was. She didn't ask for my opinion, didn't care that I wasn't particularly interested in the details. After all, what did I know about weddings? I was single and had no need for such things. And that's how I found myself once again on the sidelines, watching as Jessica's world consumed everything around her. My parents, well, they had always catered to Jessica, not because they didn't love me, but because she had always been a bit more loud, demanding. They thought her energy was charming, I suppose. They often referred to me as the quiet, responsible one. And while I understood what they meant, it stung. It always did. Still, I tried not to let it get to me. I kept working, kept saving, kept dreaming of a future that didn't involve dramatic, high-maintenance weddings or family gatherings where I was often the last to be considered. I kept to myself mostly, focused on the life I was building. Then came the day I walked into my apartment after a work trip, tired but satisfied with a job well done, only to be greeted with the sudden, sickening realization that something was wrong. The safe in my closet, where I kept my savings, was slightly ajar. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't unusual for me to store my money there, in cash, just in case. One of those old habits from growing up in a family that always worried about banks. But now, as I walked closer, I saw that the contents of the safe weren't where I'd left them. The bills were out of order, some missing altogether. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing, but when it hit hard. I immediately grabbed my phone and started checking my records. Sure enough, the amount that should have been there, the money I'd been carefully saving for years, was gone. Thousands! Gone. I called Jessica. She picked up after a few rings, almost too quickly. "Hey, what's up?" she asked in her usual sing-song voice, completely unaware of what I was about to say. "Where's the money from my safe?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean?" she replied, though there was a slight edge in her voice. "I'm asking you, Jessica," I said, trying not to sound too frantic. "Where is the money from my safe? I've checked thousands of dollars are missing." She hesitated. "Oh, that. I used it, Anna. I had to. It's for the wedding." I stared at the phone in disbelief. "What? What do you mean you used it? It was my money. You didn't even ask me." "You're single, Anna. What do you need that money for? It's not like you have anything else to spend it on." Her words stung like nothing I'd ever felt before. I tried to keep calm, but the rage was bubbling up inside me. "You took it without asking. You had no right. That money was for my future." "Well, I'm sorry," she said dismissively, "but I'm not going to apologize for borrowing a little money to make sure I have the perfect wedding. You wouldn't understand, but I had to do it, okay?" I could feel the world spinning around me, the weight of her words pressing down on me like a crushing wave, the audacity, the entitlement, and that was the moment I decided. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I spent the next few days in a haze, my thoughts racing, my emotions a tangled mess. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my safe empty, the place where I had worked so hard to keep my savings, now gutted. The betrayal felt like a weight on my chest, too heavy to shake off. I didn't know how to move forward with this, but I sure as hell knew I couldn't let Jessica get away with it. I wasn't the kind of person who liked confrontation. In fact, I hated it. It was easier for me to retreat into my own bubble, to stay quiet, to let things slide for the sake of peace. But this time, there was no sliding, no pretending everything was fine. My sister had crossed a line I wasn't willing to ignore. The worst part was that, despite everything, I still couldn't fully grasp what had led her to do it. She wasn't in financial trouble. She wasn't desperate. She didn't even need my money. She just wanted it. She had stolen from me, not because she had no choice, but because she felt entitled. She had decided that her wedding, her dream wedding, was worth more than my future, more than my savings. The confrontation had to happen. I couldn't just let it slide, but the timing was everything. I knew Jessica. She was dramatic, but she also thrived on attention. If I confronted her too soon, she'd twist everything to make herself the victim. She was good at that, too good. I had to find a way to make her face the truth, but I couldn't give her the chance to turn it around on me. And then it hit me. The engagement party. The one she'd been talking about for months. The one she'd been obsessing over. It was coming up in just a few days. The entire family would be there. Everyone would be watching. It felt wrong, like I was setting a trap. But in a way, I was, and I hated that it had to come to this. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not this time. The day of the engagement party arrived, and I could barely bring myself to put on a smile. I spent hours deciding what to wear, choosing a simple black dress, nothing too flashy. I didn't need to draw attention, I just needed to make my point clear. My stomach twisted in knots as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my hair, making sure everything was just right. I didn't want to look desperate, but I also needed to look confident. I needed to be the person I hadn't been: bold, decisive, unafraid. I drove to the venue, my mind running through everything I planned to say. Every possible scenario played out in my head, each one more dramatic than the last. But I knew the truth, and that was my anchor. I didn't need to make things complicated. I didn't need to shout or make a scene. I just needed to tell everyone what she had done, what she had taken from me. The party was held at an upscale event hall in the city, decorated to the nines. The tables were draped in white linens, covered with elaborate floral arrangements. The entire place was swarming with people, many I barely knew. The music was playing softly in the background, the laughter of guests mingling in the air. There was Jessica, standing in the center of it all, glowing in a way I'd never seen before. She looked like a princess. Her fiancé, Adam, by her side, grinning from ear to ear, as if everything in the world was exactly how it should be. As I walked into the room, I could feel the eyes of the guests flicker toward me. The tension was thick, and I hated that I was adding to it, but I couldn't stop. I made my way to the bar first, just to calm my nerves. I ordered a gin and tonic, my hands shaking slightly as I took the first sip. No more turning back. I had to do this. Jessica spotted me almost immediately, her eyes flashing with that familiar spark of annoyance. "Anna!" she called out, a little too loudly. She always did that, drawing attention to herself, to us. "You made it. I wasn't sure if you'd show up. I mean, you're not exactly the wedding type, are you?" I smiled tightly, but the venom in her voice stung. "Of course I'm here," I said, trying to keep things light. "Wouldn't miss your big day for the world." She didn't respond immediately, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "You look fine," she said, the word dripping with sarcasm. "Not quite as celebration-ready as the rest of us, but I guess that's just how you are, right?" I gripped the edge of my glass, my fingernails digging into the cold, smooth surface. This was it. I couldn't stand it anymore. I set the drink down and turned to face her, my voice calm but cutting through the air. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about your wedding, Jessica," I said, watching her freeze at my words. "About everything you've been so obsessed with." She looked taken aback, her eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" she snapped, her voice louder now, drawing the attention of nearby guests. Her fiancé glanced nervously between us, sensing the change in atmosphere. "I mean the wedding and everything you've taken," I continued, my voice steady, gaining momentum with each word. "The money from my safe, the thousands you stole without asking, without thinking for a second that maybe, just maybe, I need that money too. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" A hush fell over the room. Jessica's face turned pale, her eyes flashing with panic. "What? What are you talking about?" she stammered, trying to backpedal, but it was too late. "I'm talking about your perfect wedding," I said, my words cold and sharp. "The one you've been using my money for. You're a thief, Jessica." The room went deathly silent as the words hit, and for a brief moment I thought I saw something shift in her expression, something that looked like shame. But before she could say anything, Adam's parents stepped forward, their faces strained. "Anna, what is this about?" Adam's mother asked, her voice edged with disbelief. "It's simple," I said, looking around the room, now feeling the weight of every single pair of eyes on me. "Jessica stole from me. She used my savings to fund her dream wedding, and now she expects me to sit here and pretend like nothing happened." Jessica's face twisted in outrage, but there was no going back now. The truth was out. The days that followed the engagement party were a blur. I had expected a confrontation, a fiery exchange, but nothing had prepared me for the cold, suffocating silence that hung between Jessica and me. After I exposed her at the party, I thought it might just be a momentary shock, a misunderstanding she could explain away, but it wasn't. It was the unraveling of everything. Jessica didn't talk to me for the next 2 days. Not a word. And for a while, I convinced myself that maybe she was processing. Maybe she needed time to understand the gravity of what she'd done. But that wasn't it. She wasn't processing. She was plotting. The first time we spoke after the party, it was because she called me, her voice tight and controlled, barely masking the venom behind her words. "What the hell, Anna?" she asked. "Do you have any idea what you did?" I stood in my kitchen, staring out the window, not sure if I should answer. My emotions still felt raw, but I knew this was coming. "I know exactly what I did," I said, my tone firm but not angry. "I called you out for stealing from me. You took money that wasn't yours, and I wasn't going to pretend it didn't happen." Jessica's laugh on the other end was sharp and bitter. "Stealing? You think I stole from you? You're unbelievable. I took what I needed for my wedding, and you know what? You don't get to judge me for that. Not when you're so pathetic." Her words hit harder than I thought they would. Pathetic was something she'd always used when she was cornered, when she needed to tear me down. I didn't flinch, though. This wasn't about us anymore. This was about what was right. "You don't get to do this, Jessica," I said, my voice rising now, a little shaky. "You don't get to take from me, then throw it back in my face like it's no big deal." "Oh, I know," She cut me off. You're such a saint, Anna. Always the good one, always doing everything by the book. And what do you have to show for it? Nothing. You've never had a life, never been in a real relationship, and now you want to play the hero? You think you're better than me? I felt the anger rising, but I forced myself to stay calm. This isn't about me being better than you. This is about what's right. You took money from me, my money, Jessica, and I'm not going to let you act like it's nothing. She was silent for a moment, and I could hear her breathing through the phone, clearly furious. You've made a big mistake, Anna, she finally said, her voice low and cold. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you've just ruined your relationship with me. You've ruined everything. I didn't know how to respond to that. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much she had taken. But instead, I just hung up. I couldn't do this anymore, not with her. The silence stretched on, and over the next few days, things only got worse. Jessica's behavior became more erratic. She'd shoot me passive-aggressive texts, telling me I was ruining her wedding day, calling me a drama queen and heartless. She even went so far as to say I was jealous of her wedding and her life. But I knew better. She wasn't the victim here. I was. But Jessica wasn't finished. She was crafty, manipulative in ways I hadn't fully appreciated until now. She began to work the rest of the family, spinning the narrative that I was the one who had blown everything out of proportion, that I was just jealous because I had no life, and was bitter about her happiness. It was classic Jessica turn everything around and make it about me. But she had an ally in the form of our parents, who were, as always, quick to dismiss my concerns. They didn't want to believe that their precious daughter could do something so underhanded. Instead, they chalked it up to family drama and miscommunication, as if the thousands of dollars gone from my savings were nothing more than a silly mistake. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, Anna, my mom told me when I confronted her about Jessica's lies. She's just stressed about the wedding, and you know how she gets. You should just let it go. Let it go? I wasn't sure I could breathe through the crushing weight of her words. I had confronted Jessica. I had stood up for myself, and I was being dismissed. Again. The worst part? Jessica wasn't backing down. She was getting more brazen. She told me in no uncertain terms that if I didn't get over it, she would make sure everyone knew what a horrible sister I was, that I'd ruined her moment by trying to steal her thunder. It was one thing to steal from me, it was another to try to make me the villain in my own life. But Jessica wasn't just stopping there. I'd hear her talking to Adam and his family, spreading more lies, claiming I was out of control, emotionally unstable, even implying that I had a hidden agenda against her. She'd convinced Adam's parents that I was the one creating problems, that I was the one trying to ruin their happiness. To make matters worse, Adam, her fiancé, was starting to believe her. He'd call me, his voice strained with frustration, telling me to let things go for the sake of Jessica's dream wedding. He said that families fight sometimes and that I should just be the bigger person. It was as if his family's money and status had clouded his judgment, but I wasn't backing down, not anymore. It became clear that this wasn't just about money, this was about control. Jessica wanted to manipulate everything, to make sure that no matter what, she was always in charge, always the center of attention. And she would use anything, anyone to keep herself there. It wasn't enough for her to have stolen from me. Now, she was trying to control the narrative, to make me the villain, to make sure that when the wedding came around, I'd be the one who would be blamed for her problems. As for me, I had no choice but to fight back. I couldn't let her get away with it. She had already stolen from me, but now she was trying to steal my dignity, my reputation. She had no right to do that, no right to destroy everything I had worked so hard to build. But I was beginning to see what this fight would cost me. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about proving a point. I couldn't let her walk all over me. I couldn't let her manipulate our family into thinking I was the one in the wrong. So I began to plan, and I was going to make sure that this time Jessica would have to face the consequences of her actions. The truth was on my side, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it, but I could feel the tension rising, I could feel the storm coming, and I knew, deep down, that the worst was yet to come. The day of the wedding arrived, and I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that gnawed at me. The whole thing felt wrong from the start. Jessica's perfect, curated day, her flawless life that she was determined to sell to everyone. The lies, the manipulation, the theft, it was all leading to this moment. It was too much to let slide anymore. I had already exposed her at the engagement party, but now it was time to finish what I started. I'd spent the entire morning trying to calm my nerves. I stood in front of the mirror, tugging at my dress as I checked my appearance one last time. I wasn't nervous about my outfit. I didn't care about looking good for the occasion. But what I was about to do? That was the hardest thing I had ever planned. Jessica's wedding was a spectacle, as expected. The venue was grand and old, luxurious estate, with high ceilings and walls draped in white silk. The flowers were extravagant, as were the guests. Every detail was meticulously planned, every moment was orchestrated with precision. It was everything Jessica had ever dreamed of, and for that, I could almost respect it. Almost. But this wasn't just about the wedding. It was about a woman who had stolen from me and tried to destroy my life, my dignity, and my reputation. The ceremony was over, and the guests had moved on to the reception. I could already hear the laughter and clinking of glasses as I made my way into the ballroom. I felt the weight of every eye on me as I stepped through the door. My parents were there, of course, looking proud of Jessica as always. Her fiancé, Adam, was surrounded by his family, all smiles, oblivious to the storm that was brewing. But Jessica, she saw me immediately. Her face tightened, a flash of annoyance crossing her features. She was all smiles to the guests, but I could see the underlying tension. She knew I was there, and she knew what was coming. As I walked through the crowd, I could feel her eyes on me. Her expression was sharp, and I could see the panic in her gaze. She was no longer in control, and that terrified her. I could hear the music playing in the background, soft and slow, but the pulse in my ears was louder. My heartbeat was thudding against my chest, and I knew that this was the moment. I couldn't go back now. The stage was set. I found myself standing in front of the head table where Jessica and Adam sat, looking like they were the epitome of happiness, completely oblivious to what was about to unfold. I took a deep breath, and then, without hesitation, I stepped forward and addressed the crowd. "I need everyone's attention," I said, my voice steady but cutting through the noise. "I'm Anna, Jessica's sister, and I'm here to set the record straight." I felt a wave of shock ripple through the crowd. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, and eyes turned to me. Jessica's face flushed a deep red, and she looked like she might burst into flames right there. She tried to stand, but her body stiffened in place, clearly trying to maintain her composure. Adam looked confused, his smile faltering as he glanced between his family and Jessica, waiting for an explanation. I didn't give her the chance to explain. "You see," I continued, the words flowing now, "while Jessica has been planning her fairy tale wedding, there's something she's kept from all of you, something she's tried to hide, something that's been weighing on me for far too long." Jessica's jaw clenched, and she stood quickly, her hands shaking at her sides. She shot a look at Adam's parents, as if to say, "This isn't the time, don't listen to her," but it was too late. The seed of doubt had already been planted. Her perfect image was cracking, and the cracks were getting wider with every word I spoke. "I'm talking about the money she took from me," I said, my voice steady now, the anger and hurt from all those months of torment boiling to the surface. "Thousands of dollars, money that I worked hard for, money I saved for my own future, and Jessica took it, without asking, without permission, without any regard for the fact that it wasn't hers." There was a collective gasp from the crowd. A few people shifted uneasily in their seats, but most of the guests looked as though they couldn't quite process what I was saying. Jessica, on the other hand, was furious. She opened her mouth to speak, but I wasn't finished yet. I know she's been trying to make me the villain in all this, I said, my voice rising a little. I know she's told everyone that I'm jealous, that I'm bitter, that I'm ruining her happiness. But the truth is, she stole from me. She took something that wasn't hers, and now she's playing the victim. She's been manipulating all of you into thinking I'm the one causing problems. Well, now you know the truth. Jessica took a step toward me, her hand raised as if to slap me, but I stood my ground. She was a woman used to getting what she wanted, but I wasn't the quiet, responsible sister anymore. I was done being her punching bag. "Stop," I said, my voice low but firm. "Just stop, Jessica. You've taken everything from me, my money, my trust, my respect, and you've tried to destroy me, but I won't let you do that anymore. I won't let you ruin everyone's life just because you want to wear a pretty dress." A heavy silence hung in the air as everyone processed the words I'd just said. Jessica was shaking now, but not with fear. She was angry. Her face twisted in a way I hadn't seen before, a mixture of outrage and disbelief. "You think you're the good one here?" she spat, her voice rising. "You think you're some saint, standing up here like you're better than me? You have no idea what it's like to want something so badly, to need it so much. You think I took your money because I wanted to? I needed it, Anna. But of course you wouldn't understand that. You've never had to fight for anything in your life." I could feel the tears threatening to rise, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not now. "I understand just fine, Jessica, but what you don't understand is that you can't steal from people and expect them to forgive you. You can't manipulate everyone around you to get what you want." Her fiancé, Adam, finally stood up, his face a mixture of confusion and frustration. "Jessica, is this true?" he asked, his voice edged with disbelief. "Did you really?" "It's none of your business," Jessica snapped, cutting him off. "You don't understand. None of you understand." But it was too late. Adam's parents stepped forward, their faces tight with disapproval. They looked at Jessica, then back at me, as if piecing everything together. "Jessica," Adam's father said quietly, "we need to talk. This isn't acceptable." I could feel the weight of the moment. Jessica's perfect world was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Her wedding, her dream day, was being overshadowed by her own actions, and no matter how hard she tried to spin it, no matter how much she yelled, it was over. The truth had been exposed. I stood there, heart pounding, but I didn't feel the need to say anything more. The damage had been done, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The days following the wedding were a whirlwind of emotions, and for once, I couldn't bring myself to care. Jessica's meltdown at the reception, her furious attempt to deny everything, had set off a chain of events that I knew couldn't be undone. The truth was out, and there was no escaping it. The family was left to pick up the pieces, and Jessica's carefully constructed world of perfection was crumbling faster than she could control. The first call I received was from my mother. She didn't waste any time, jumping straight into damage control. "Anna, we need to talk," she said, her voice strained but calm. "This has gone too far." I didn't even bother trying to mask the bitterness in my tone. "What's gone too far, Mom? The fact that Jessica stole from me and you're still trying to make me the villain? Is that what you mean?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Your sister has made some mistakes, but—" I cut her off, my words sharp. "Mistakes? Mom, she took thousands of dollars from me. You're still defending her?" "You're not listening," she said, sounding almost pleading. "I know what Jessica did was wrong, but this is family. We've all made mistakes, Anna. Why can't you just let it go?" Let it go. The word stung, but I wasn't surprised. My mother had always been the one to smooth things over, to make sure everyone got along, but I wasn't the same person who had let Jessica walk all over me for years. I wasn't going to back down just because it was family. "I'm not letting it go, Mom," I said firmly. "I've had enough. She crossed a line, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen." Another long silence. "I know you're upset. We all are. But don't you think it's time to move on?" I didn't answer right away. I could hear my mother's voice quiver with emotion, and for a moment I almost gave in. But I knew I couldn't go back. Not now. Not after everything. "I'm not moving on from this, Mom," I said, my voice softer now but resolute. "I need you to understand that." The conversation ended with little resolution, but at least I had said my piece. The next few days were a blur of uncomfortable family gatherings and strained conversations. Jessica avoided me like the plague, and when she did talk to me, it was with a mix of anger and forced politeness. I could see the change in her. Her mask had slipped, and there was no pretending anymore. She had exposed herself for what she truly was: selfish, manipulative, and entirely incapable of taking responsibility for her actions. I got a call from Adam's parents a few days later. They were less than pleased with how things had unfolded. They'd heard Jessica's side of the story, her version of the drama, and as I expected, they were inclined to defend their son and his bride. But they were also pragmatic people, and the way Jessica had acted in front of them made it hard to ignore the truth. "Anna, we owe you an apology," Adam's father said, his voice uncharacteristically apologetic. "Jessica's actions were inexcusable. We never should have let it go this far." I sat back, surprised. "I appreciate you saying that, but I don't think an apology changes what happened." "True," he agreed, "but I think it's important you know we don't condone what Jessica did, and we're going to have a serious conversation with her about it." I couldn't help but feel a little satisfaction at the turn of events. For once, Jessica wasn't the golden child. She wasn't sorry for betraying me, for taking something that was mine, for the damage she had done. No, she was only sorry because now it was coming back to bite her. "I don't want your apology," I said, cutting her off. "I want you to own up to what you've done." "I'm pressing charges, Carly. I'm not letting you get away with this." Her response was a long, drawn-out laugh. "Oh, come on. Don't be ridiculous. Do you really think you're going to win? I've got the support of Mom and Dad. They'll never let you do this. They'll side with me. They always do." A cold chill ran through me. "You're delusional if you think this is about Mom and Dad. This is about what you did, and you'll pay for it." "I'm not going to let you ruin my life over a stupid mistake," she said, her voice hardening. "If you press charges, it'll just make everything worse for both of us. You'll regret this." I hung up before she could say anything else. I had never heard her like that before, so desperate, so angry. She knew she was losing control, and that made her dangerous. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't backing down. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and emails, with the police getting involved more deeply. I was gathering my evidence, GPS data, photos of the car, the police report from the accident. The more I uncovered, the more clear it became. This wasn't just a careless mistake. Carly had planned this. She had driven the car out of town to a location she knew would make it look like an accident, then stage the crash. The fact that she'd waited until the car was in an area with limited surveillance cameras and no witnesses made it obvious. She thought she could get away with it. But Carly didn't realize that I had done my homework too. I knew what I was dealing with, and I wasn't going to be intimidated by her empty threats. Then came the bombshell. Carly's next move was unexpected, and it shook me to my core. She went to our parents. Of course she did. "Mom, Dad, you have to understand. She's going crazy," Carly said, her voice dripping with victimhood. "She's trying to ruin my life over something that was just a stupid mistake. I made a poor decision, but I'm trying to fix it." I didn't miss the toxic hold she'd had on me for all those years. I didn't miss the way she had made me feel small, insignificant, like I didn't matter. I was learning, little by little, that it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me, my peace, my boundaries, my life. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally living it on my terms. I had won, not because I had exposed her at the wedding, but because I had finally stood up for myself. I had taken my life back, and that was worth more than anything she could ever take from me.